Good evening.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Hi, Nellie. April.
Good evening,
Joan.
April.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. You too.
Good evening, Ben. Good evening to our 9 attendees so far. We'll give it just a few moments for everyone to get settled and logged in. Good evening, Danielle.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi. How are you, Joan?
Good, Danielle. Hi, Frank.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening, Frank.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening, Ben.
Hi, Joan.
Hi. Good to see you, Frank.
Yes. Hey, I got your message. I'll call you and talk with you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll call you tomorrow. Tell me a good time.
Morning's good.
I'll do that.
Thank you,
Early.
Joan.
Okay.
Good evening, Dan.
Hello. Oh, on camera.
Good evening, Mr. Tanner.
Still a good side view.
Hello.
Hi, John.
Joan, how are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. I'm doing all right.
Great. Well, I believe Myra will be joining us a little late this evening. So I think she'll be about 15, 20 minutes late. April, just so you know for your notes, to be looking for her. I'll try to be mindful as well and let you know. So good evening to our 12 attendees. Thank you for joining the May 18th, 2022 VSWEA board meeting. We'll go ahead and get started. I'll read the opening verse. The true aim of education is to awaken real powers of perception and judgment in relation to life and living. For only such an awakening can lead to true freedom. Rudolf Steiner. And now we'll go through introductions. I'll kick it off and just call out to people on my screen in the order that I see, and then we'll introduce our guests as well, as we have several this evening. My name is Kirsten Kabina. I am the board president. I have 2 children at Desert Marigold School. And Nellie, you're up next.
Nellie Krosenbacher, board member, and I have 4 children at DMS.
Thank you. April.
April Sauer, board secretary, and I have a daughter at DMS.
Great. Ben.
Sorry. Hi, all. Ben Fong, board member. I've got 2 kids at DMS.
Thank you. Danielle.
Hi, good evening. Danielle Martinez, board member. My daughter's in 10th grade, and we've been at DMS since preschool.
Thank you. Mr. Tanner.
John Tanner, board member.
Dan Franks.
This is Dan Franks. Good evening. I'm the board treasurer, and I had 2 kids in DMS, but they are currently enrolled in a Steiner school in Australia.
Thank you. And Scott.
Hi, this is Scott Edwards. I'm without a camera, and can you hear this, or am I without a microphone too?
We can hear you.
Great, thanks.
Perfect. And then we have 3 guests joining us this evening. Frank, if you want to kick it off.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Frank Marizio, and I'm the proud executive director of
Thank you, Frank. And Michelle.
Hi, I am Michelle Kretzer, Parent Council Chair.
Thank you, Michelle. And last and not least, Joan Treadaway, if you'd like to introduce yourself, we're so excited to have
Thank you. I'm Joan Treadaway. I had two children one child and one grandchild go through Waldorf through the 6th grade. And that younger one is living with us now. He's 16. So that's a kind of a short picture.
Thank you so much. Okay, great. And again, thank you. We're now up to 13 attendees. I'm sure the vast majority are here to hear you speak, Joan, to us about Waldorf education and community building. So I will go ahead and turn it over to you and we'll get kicked off.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you all again. I can't tell you what it means to be able to speak to a board of directors who are so genuinely interested in promoting Waldorf education and really finding out what stands behind this education. And I'd like to start off with a picture of one of the leaders of Waldorf education in America in the 70s and 80s. His name was Werner Gloss from Germany. And I had the privilege of getting to know him very well because I was working in Boulder, Colorado at the school, and he helped us develop that school. He and Rene Carrito, who were really two of the leaders of Waldorf in America. They both started a training center, Rudolph Steiner College, with Rene, and what is now Sunbridge by Werner. And they traveled around a great deal. And I was fortunate to spend a great deal of time with Werner. And there are many stories I would love to share with you, but there are two pictures that I think are significant. And one is that Werner shared with me in one of those quiet moments that he was one of those 2,000 children who was put on Kindertransport in Nazi Germany. I don't know if you all know about that, but when I was growing up, that was a picture I carried with me of the children during that time, 39 and 40, who were put on a train to get to England to get out of Nazi Germany. Their parents put them on what was called Kindertransport so that they could be saved from the death camps and from the gas chambers. So this picture of this young boy, 9 years old, 8 years old, leaving his parents putting him on the train with a placard around his neck that said, "Find Dr. Gloss in England." And remarkably enough, Werner, as a young boy, was able to find Dr. Norbert Gloss in England, who was his uncle, whom he knew nothing about, but he was an anthroposophical doctor. And he raised Werner. And Werner has this remarkable background of tragedy and sorrow and loss, and yet this marvelous human being to raise him. The other picture of Werner is that he worked very hard to help us establish Shining Mountain Waldorf School, he and Rene both. And at one point, Werner got a very deadly cancer and was gone probably for, I don't know, a year or 2 years from our work together. And when he finally returned, I picked him up at the airport. I was responsible for his hotel and his meals and his travel. And I picked him up at the airport, and on our way to Boulder, he spoke about, I asked him tenderly, he had just had this terrible cancer, and he had at that point overcome it. And I said, "Werner, how are you doing?" And he said very quietly, and this is all he said, "I hope you find me changed." And I feel like that is kind of the motif in which we can be in when we really are in. This change that Werner spoke about is the gift that comes from illness, from tragedy, from difficulties, from depression, this gift of the possibility of change coming out of tragedy. Even death, I can assure you, this gift of the possibility of transformation. And I look at that in terms of where we are in Desert Marigold today, that as we come out of the pain and the sorrow and the division, the difficulties of the last 2.5 years of the pandemic, of the loss and the trauma. And are we back to normal? Maybe we feel back to normal, but some things must have changed. Could we give attention to that question and ask ourselves what lives behind these events for us? And what are the possibilities? What are the opportunities open to us to find the change that's needed? The pandemic affected us all, and perhaps we are led together to find new ways at DMS for ourselves, for our faculty, for our whole community, our parents. So we need to ask this question, I think. What is needed? What is important? What is healing? What is nourishing? And we have a choice. We have a choice to continue on as if nothing had happened. We all know that nothing is the same as it was before. And so we do have this possibility of finding change or finding what's needed. And we could ask, what new possibilities and opportunities are open to us as we move away from the pandemic and have this kind of opening that's possible? And maybe it centers on this question of what can we offer to one another? Do we need to widen our hearts after these apocalyptic times? And they were apocalyptic times. What might that all mean? And how can we find some direction? Do we find ourselves changed? Do we find one another changed out of this storm? And how can we find a new balance out of that inner turmoil of these past 2 years, 2.5 years? We can think of ourselves as if we were in the middle of an ocean in a storm, in a boat, and we look for a beacon, a vision, a light to guide us. And I think one of those lights for us at this time is the motto of the social ethic. A verse by Rudolf Steiner spoken at many DMS gatherings and meetings, and I think it's even been spoken from the board, if I remember correctly. But it's been spoken many, many times at DMS and, of course, by many groups and gatherings. And maybe it has a new meaning for us in this question of what change could we find? So could we listen with new ears to that verse, with new ears, with the exact words that speak to us maybe in a new way? The healthy social life is found only when in the mirror of each human soul, the whole community finds its reflection. And when in the whole community, the virtue of each one is living. This verse by Rudolf Steiner, if we are a true Waldorf school, isn't that what we wish for? Isn't this what we ascribe to? We read this verse so often. How can it speak to us in new ways at this time with these questions? How is each person valued by the community? And how does each person value the community? It implies, I think, that we are each other's keepers. And if we think about that statement, that's a very, very, let's just say, heavy statement. But I think that we, at our best sense of that is that that's true. And is there this trust in the renewing individual spirit of each person on our campus? Waldorf education, I believe, only lives if we are creating it day by day. What is it that we are creating? We know how hard every person at DMS works. the administration, the faculty, the staff, the parents, the groundskeepers, the on and on, the aides, the board. I know what it's like to work in a Waldorf school. I know what it's like to work on a board. It's hard work. And often it's not a very thankless job, unfortunately. But we do that because we love Waldorf education and we want to bring it to our children, this amazing education. We want to bring that. That's why we work hard. But how can we carry and care for the entire organism of a school as big as Desert Marigold, or any school, small or large? Even teaching is a full-time job. Sometimes a board member is a full-time job. An aide is a full-time job. How about the administrator? You know, they're all working as hard as they can out of these wonderful impulses. So how do we care for and carry this huge organism of the Waldorf School? All these individual parts. Do we know and care for especially what others are thinking and doing? How much interest do we take in what the others do? The other lives in our community that are carrying their load. Are we modeling this sense of brotherhood, of caring for one another? Are we modeling that for our children? Because that's what they will imitate. They will become what they see in us. Are we modeling that? So how can we renew this out of the, how can we renew these things out of the model of the social ethic? Do we know and care for especially what others are thinking and doing? Do we know what interest and capacities others have and how we can help to develop them? We are our brother's keepers. Isn't this the basis of a Waldorf community, the whole community? Do we speak to one another on a regular basis? Do we remember our colleagues? What is it that we wish for? What is it we ascribe to? And what I think we ascribe to is that each person is valued by the community and that each person values the community. And that takes work. And do we strive for that? So I moved to the picture of how the Desert Marigold Board, Desert Marigold School Board, and parents and teachers made a strong commitment to work for change by embracing and participating in the Waldorf School contemplation. It was this kind of commitment to change that I've been talking about, to finding our center that we had hoped for, and to creating a culture of caring, of responsibility, and of finding new ways of deepening our Waldorf connection to one another, to the principles of Waldorf education. And interesting to me, as I've been thinking about it, is the makeup of the contemplation. In other words, the group that eventually came together is the only school body that I know of at Desert Marigold where every realm, faculty, administration, parents, alum of our campus came with an equal voice. That's quite a deed. So we look at diversity, equality, and inclusion. All these were at work in the contemplation. It was hard work, and those who participated brought their hopes and concerns, their disappointments, and their dreams to the table. And we came out with commitments for change, with heartfelt hopes for the future of our DMS organism, and a gift for our DMS children to live within a culture of caring and this community that I've been speaking about. During this contemplation, we saw old patterns and ways of thinking that had depleted us. And we clarified and brought those into the light. That was not an easy process. We brought them into the light with the desire and hopes of bringing change and new life to Desert Marigold. We worked to forgive and to go forward. And there were very serious commitments, actions to continue that were there and are for the future betterment of the work of Desert Marigold. The contemplation itself was built upon Rudolf Steiner's intention for healing communities through the impulses and processes inherent in the principles of Waldorf education. We worked for several months, listening, working, agreeing, disagreeing, but ultimately coming out with a remarkable list of intentions and commitments to create a new future for Desert Marigold. That implementation process of these commitments and these projects growing out of the contemplation began immediately, and they continue to this day. We know, I'm sure you know, that several members of the contemplation who were able to committed themselves to continuing that implementation, carrying out the projects that were inspired by the contemplation, finding new ways of caring for the entire organism of Desert Marigold School, offering their time and energy for this ongoing work. Several of the projects still live on, while new ones emerge as we work together, listening to the voices in the community as we did before, caring, asking, and opening our hearts to hearing what are the needs at Desert Marigold. So I think, in summary, that we as a community can be grateful that there is this process for change, this process where each person can be valued. And we can work toward helping each person value the whole community, continuing to support and implement these changes needed on our campus, supporting the new initiatives that grew out and continue to grow out of the contemplation of DMS. And we hope that others will join in this work together. Of course, we invite anyone who wishes to join, and we thank everyone who was part of the contemplation that really built the building blocks for what is continuing today. And the motto of the social ethic, I believe, can now live in a new way among us as we try to hear it with new ears, reminding us to continually renew our commitments to the spirit of Desert Marigold School. And I assure you, we will greet one another with the knowledge within us that says, I hope you see me changed. And so I'd like to just close once again with the words of the motto of the social ethic, again, hearing it with new words or new ears, new intentions and new desires, perhaps. The healthy social life is found only when in the mirror of each human soul, the whole community finds its reflection. And when in the whole community, the virtue of each one is living. Rudolf Steiner. And my friends, if it would be helpful, I would be happy to send to you a list of the projects that are ongoing. The projects you might probably aren't aware of that are still ongoing and developing developing and becoming new. So if that would be helpful, I would be happy to send those to Kirsten and she can forward them on to you.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you for your attention and for the brief moments I've been able to share with you.
Joan, thank you so much for taking the time. I can't speak for everyone, but for myself, your wisdom is always very inspirational, and it really steadies the resolve. So thank you for, always coming and just giving your whole self to us.
You're so welcome. It's a pleasure. It's really my pleasure. Thank you. And my best wishes to every one of you in this great task that you've taken on. Sending my love. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's always so moving. It's kind of hard to move on from the agenda, but we'll look forward to Joan sending over those ongoing projects, and I'll make sure and share those at the next board meeting, so we can always stay mindful of all that good work. Next up, sorry, Frank, you have big shoes to fill in the next role, but we'll look forward to your executive director update.
No problem. It's always like, I want to reiterate every time I talk to Joan, it's just awesome. It's like, those of you who are old enough to remember, it's E.F. Hutton. When E.F. Hutton talks, everyone leans in. It's very nice. And I have a phone call scheduled with her for tomorrow to talk about some of the summer teacher training stuff. But let me start at the top with some huge thank yous. Thank you for a wonderful, wonderful event up in the mountains of Lakeside Show Low, where we had the medieval games this last weekend. And several parents were involved in helping with that. I see Sammy Rank is on the participant call. She was a huge help in supporting my teacher. Nellie Grossenbacher was there, the Elixivades. I thank all of those parents for their behind the scenes work. I especially thank Mr. Friedman, our movement teacher, and Mr. Camacho, our woods teacher, as they play big roles, not just for our school, but for all the schools attending. And a little badge of honor to our wonderful young sixth grade teacher, who's been nothing short of a hero these last couple months. She did a wonderful job and just came home just so awestruck of the whole thing that the medieval games provides for our kids and our community. And so kudos to the medieval games. Special thanks to the people who put it on. They did a wonderful job. I was able to talk to Crystal Lee twice this week. They are in the middle of the senior trip. And so I check in every other day, bright and early in the morning, and they're all already up and raring to go for what awaits the day. And it's going well, no injuries, no sicknesses. Everybody's having a great time, and we're pleased that that's going well. I sent you guys a little bit of a board report. I'm happy to report that we found a first grade teacher, a second grade teacher, and a special ed teacher. And we feel like we struck gold with all three of them. I offered the seventh grade job yesterday, and that person who has several other offers is sleeping on it. As most people ask, can I have a night to sleep on it? And I hope to hear back tomorrow morning, as we really like this seventh grade candidate as well. And then I am still looking for a counselor. We interviewed a couple of people, but we're not close to making a decision on that. We have a couple more applicants that we're looking at, but I feel good that we found 3 of our 5 openings already, and I'll continue to keep you updated on that situation. Our audit is next week from Brent Backlund, our CPA. I know April and Kirsten have been working on their little homework assignments to get some things on behalf of the board. And Deb and Crystal, of course, are very busy. And last year that went very well. Obviously, you never know on these things. And I believe we've done a lot of work especially with our behind the scenes files, and whether it's special ed students or HR files, or as simple as, does everyone have a fingerprint card? We've done a lot of work to make sure that's in order, and that audit will be next week. And he usually takes a good month to report back, but I'll keep you posted over the summer. Our student counts, we're holding steady at 282 right now, but our enrollment number is still 307 with 316 as a possibility. And we are budgeting on 300 just to be safe, not to go over. Obviously, it worked out pretty well that we budgeted for 287 this year. And basically up till about 3 weeks ago, we were at 287. So that was a good guess. It really is a guesstimate. I hate to say that, but we always want to err on the positive side there. So even though we might have 316, budgeting on 300 is a smart thing to do, because if we get 316, that's all extra. That's stuff that we might be able to do some things that are not making the budget cut right now. The bathrooms, they're putting the fences up in the morning so that we can keep students away from the concrete work and plumbing work. I'm assuming that will be done before school begins. He left me a text today that he has news for me on the wood shop permits. So I expect when he shows up tomorrow to put the fences up, he'll come see me. That could be really good news. He would have gave me bad news in a text, so I'm guessing it's good news. Trying to think what else. Tomorrow we leave for the 5th grade pentathlon games. It's a busy week for field trips, and this is a Thursday, Friday trip, and Mrs. Hart and Miss Bonnie are the two chaperones going on this trip. Of course, Mr. Camacho and Mr. Friedman play a role in these games as well. And we're excited to see what lays ahead for the 5th graders. I know they're chomping at the bit to go on this trip. If I'm correct, I think that's the first big trip is 5th grade. Am I right in saying that? In the Waldorf world, that's the first big one. And so they're very excited about that. I'm trying to think if there was one other really important thing. I listed some dates for you guys coming up. Again, just to remind you, we have things like 8th grade promotion, high school graduation, rose ceremony, a lot going on those last 3 days. Next Thursday is a half day. That's when all these things happen. And Friday, there's no school for kids, but the staff come in. And I'll have a nice breakfast for them, and we'll go through a checkout procedure with them. That's it. That's all I have to report right now. I know it's a pretty full agenda. I saw some new things on there. So I'll let us get to the business at hand unless anyone has any questions.
I just had a few questions, Frank. Of the teachers that are here and the new ones that are taking on, like the 1st and 2nd grade teacher, who is doing teacher training this year, whether it's the 1st tier or the 2nd tier?
If you are in your 1st year of the summer training, you will be mostly taught by Rebecca Hips and Michelle Blazowitz. If you're in the 2nd year, you will be mostly taught by Drew Crane Smith and Dr. Darian. All groups, both groups will be taught by, we have Rachel is doing eurythmy. We have Heidi, I forgot Heidi's last name, from the private school in Tucson. She's doing movement. We have art that's taking place. We have music that's taking place. Joan and Peter are doing some anthroposophy lessons. So it's a full range of guest speakers, if you will. Is that what the question you meant?
No, I wanted to know who on our staff is attending.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, the new 7th grade. Really, the only two in the grades that are not attending are 3rd grade and 8th grade, 4th grade and 8th grade, Gene and John. The high school, we have 2 teachers attending, the math teacher and the English teacher.
Okay. And if this possible 7th grade hire doesn't falls through, do you have anyone else down the pipe that has applied?
We have 3 more applicants that, for different reasons, we chose to not interview because they were not highly qualified, to be quite honest. But I will look at them deeper and see if I can help get them qualified through the state. The ones that we interviewed, and there was one other one that's a possibility that we interviewed who is highly qualified. So yes, we have some other candidates. We just really liked this particular one, was heads and tails above the rest.
And by qualified, you mean just Arizona certified teacher, not Waldorf?
Correct.
Okay.
And experience, and teaching experience, and particularly this one in junior high.
Okay, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Any interest in art? Will there be,
Yes.
Okay.
She has an art background and a music background. And, a freak thing, Nellie, she makes and teaches jewelry making, just like
They
art.
can carry on.
Yeah.
High school programming.
And then the wood shop, that's going to happen after the bathrooms? And do you
No,
think
they
that'll-
can be done simultaneously as soon as the permit comes through. My contractor is willing to do both at the same time because he knows I want them both open for school.
I was going to say, yeah, that was my next question. Do you think it'll be done by August?
That is our plan. We are moving
Okay.
forward to have it done for the 2nd week of August. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Frank.
Okay.
Lots of good news on the horizon. Appreciate that. Next up, we have our parent council update from Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks for having me too. It should be pretty short. Let's see, we had our clothing and seed exchange last Friday. It was a really good turnout, and lots of exchanges happened. So thank you everybody that participated. Thank you all those that helped. It was a great success. The teacher appreciation was the week before. It was ongoing at the last meeting. So thank you so much to Sophie and Morgan Davis. They both helped tremendously. They did all the planning and everything. So thank you so much for that. And then the only other thing, the Waldorf training, the teacher training that Frank was talking about, we opened that up to anybody can join it as a paying participant. So we would love to see others there. So thank you all so much. I think that's all that I have. If anybody has any questions or anything.
Michelle, I know the meeting yesterday was canceled. Do we have a new date for those votes?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
And Michelle, did you want to give us some highlights of the Barnyard Brunch?
Oh, sure. The Barnyard Brunch, it, in my opinion, went amazingly well. There were several people participating. So thank you everybody who participated, and everybody picked up their baskets. So sorry. If you didn't get one, they were all gorgeous baskets as usual. Every single one of them turned out amazingly well. And the auction, there's a separate silent auction that should be going out. I believe it's tonight or tomorrow. I need to check on that, but you should be receiving information on that, some other really fun things to do, and products and that type of thing from our community members. So thank you everybody who added to that. I don't have a final number right now. We are probably at about 7,000 at the moment, and our minimum was 5,000. So we hit our minimum, and appreciate everybody that participated, from one raffle ticket to many. So thank you everybody for that.
That's great, Michelle. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions?
You left out the amazing food.
Oh my gosh, Nellie. Yes, Nellie and Sergio and Nicole. I can't thank you guys enough. We heard nothing but good news or good things about all of the amazing food. So thank you for sweating it out over the grills and all of that awesome stuff. Thank you so much.
Great. Any other questions? Well, thank you, Michelle, for your update and all of the good work that everyone's doing. We really appreciate the efforts.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, and now we will move on to the financial update. I will go ahead and share my screen here so we can all take a look together. All right. I will start with the collapsed profit and loss. Of course, that's from July 2021 through April 2022. As you can see here, we are still in the black, so that is good. As we're winding down is generally when we start, kind of running out a bit as we're spending all of our money on everything. So still looking good there. Our collapsed balance sheet, of course, this is going to be all of our assets. We still have some money due from the state, so that's great. And of course, all of our fixed assets. And then finally, the budget versus actuals report, again, focusing mostly on April. That's what we're looking at here for this meeting. But then you can also see where our totals ended up, where we budgeted, and what our variants are. So as we jump into budgeting meetings, these next 2 meetings in June, April, keep me honest if I misspeak, but I believe the first board meeting on, I guess it's June 1st. We will have hopefully the budget ready to go to review, ask our questions, and then we will finalize our budget and on the June 15th meeting. So something to look forward to there. All right. Any questions? I guess I could scroll down just a little bit.
Are you bringing up the P&L also?
Yes, that was the first item I brought up.
So I did have a question on page 1 of the profit and loss statement, July 2021 through April 2022. We have really high payments in September, January, and I know Frank said sometimes they have to chase after those dollars. Is that still the case?
I'm sorry, which line are you referring to? For private kinder, did you say?
On the income report? No, it says tuition from individuals, income line 1310 on the profit and loss. Does it
74,000.
No, that's why I have to finish. The other
This is the P&L. I'm not sure which one you're Frank to the edit. Okay, let me see. Same thing. All right. Meeting documents. Thank you, April, for always putting those together for me. Expanded profit and loss. Okay. Well, I'm having a hard time bringing it up. Let's see. I'm just bringing it up here. And I'll try to make this a little bit bigger. Sorry, everyone. Okay. So, again, this is the document you're looking at, the expanded profit and loss. And you are asking about...
First line, we have higher payments in September, October, and January.
Yes, I can explain that.
I'm sorry, can we be clear on the line? This one right here.
I can't see your mouse.
I've highlighted it in blue. So in September, it was 4,600. October, it was 1,200. November, 982. Yes. Great. And Frank, did you want to take that one? Or?
Yes, I can explain that. Great. The last part of your question, I'll answer first. Currently, we only have 2 families that still owe, and I've spoken to both of those families. They know that, and they have told me they will pay that next month. The reason that they aren't the same each month is some families pay 3 months at a time, and some go every month. But in the end, we are only down. One family is 2 months and one family is 3 months, and everybody else is paid in full.
Okay, thank you, Frank. And Kirsten, the highlight finally came up on my screen.
Oh, great. And then also, I spoke with Jessica today, and we are also having a bit of trouble with our Stripe tool, getting the money deposited into our account. So there is a bit more that will be deposited into cash, but it should reflect, it should be reflected here as the payments are being recorded.
Thank you. And we haven't mentioned tax credits in a while, and that's a really nice jump. That one's now at $16,313.78. So I want to definitely thank all families who've contributed. Really appreciate that.
Danielle, what have we historically gotten for tax credits in the past?
Well, we had some 2.5 interesting years, but it's ranged anywhere from 10,000 to 40,000.
Okay.
Our highest year was closer to 40, and our average was 10 when I looked at the report.
Please know that is not money that's available, as much of it was already spent on field trips, as parents can donate that to go towards their kids' field trip.
And thank you to our families.
Yep.
I had a question about the after-school clubs in September, which was the highest. What were we offering at? And you don't have to answer me tonight, Frank, but what were we offering at that time that brought in so much income?
I would tell you in September, our classes were full. It's the same offer. It was chess. It was the book club. It was the homework club. It was guitar. They all had between 15 and 25 kids in them. And then when we started having to cancel because we were on quarantines and this group couldn't make with this group, that killed it. And it went down to only the parents who absolutely had to have that sent their kids, because the others found another way that would be more consistent. It really was about us being up 1 week, down 1 week, up another week. It was terrible. That really hurt that program.
Thank you, Frank. And the breakdown of the restricted contributions, do we have planned usages for those funds?
We can't hear you, Frank. You cut out. We still can't hear you.
It's like I'm having a,
There we go. We got you again.
sorry. On Monique's expanded versions, those are broken down, but those are totals on restricted monies.
Okay. Thank you, Frank.
Mhm.
And the Prop 123 funds, was that used for anything specific or just put in the general fund?
It gets put in for salaries and benefits because typically that is designated to go to salary.
Thank you. And what is defined as the instructional improvement?
Where is that one?
The next one down.
So,
Instructional improvement? Is that the one?
Yes.
The one with, it looks like is it 5,000 or 8,000? It's so small.
8,000. Yeah, 8,100. Sorry. It's a big
That can
document.
be anything from supplies for reading materials. It could be for a new set of books for a certain grade. It has to be for supplies. That cannot go to salaries. It's for stuff that are tools. It could be stuff for dyslexia. We have a wide range of things. If I ran out of money in the special ed line, I could use that for special ed kids if I needed to. It has to do with tools for teachers that are geared towards increasing reading, writing, and math scores.
thank you. And I may have asked this one already, but how many of our current teachers were able to receive the 301 fund?
I just finished that this past week, and we have 16 that qualified. And that payment will be in mid-June, and we're still predicting it will be between 3,200 and 3,500 per teacher.
Awesome, thank you. On page 2, line item 6310 on professional development, is that including summer training or is that all lumped together or is that only summer training?
Well, first of all, the summer Waldorf teaching training that we're doing, our parent group is sponsoring everything for that. This, and I talked to Michelle and
But that line item,
about it yesterday, is the Waldorf training is separate from the grade level training. Example, if I'm a second grade teacher this year, I want specific curriculum information for third grade. And there are online, Gradalis is a very popular Waldorf program, and it's usually between 500 and 550. And I am using that professional development line to pay for teachers to attend those specific grade trainings. That is different than the overall Waldorf training about foundations and
summer training.
anthropology and main lesson. Does that answer your question?
So yes, what I'm hearing you say is that is not counting any of the summer training funds.
No, that none of that line goes to the summer training that we are hosting for our non-Waldorf trained teachers. That is a different thing.
Okay, thank you, Frank. And then my last question on page 5. So we are showing a net income of the 429,512 and confirming with our balances. Is that, you said you're meeting, we're discussing the budget for June. Is that including strings teachers or additional programming? Is that up for discussion at that meeting?
No, I believe that line only goes through April. So May and June are not on there yet.
The discussion based on our net income for our budget analysis.
I don't think I understand the question. Are you asking, will that dollar amount?
Are we creating additional programming for the upcoming year based on these figures?
Not yet, no, because we still have to encumber that money into May and June.
Okay, and so that at the June meeting will be our discussion?
Yes, I should be able to show you the preliminary budget about where, for instance, the increase in student count, where's that money going? Where is the budget from the state that we are anticipating a 2% raise? For those of you who don't know, it is the law that it has risen by a minimum of 2% for inflation. Right now, the preliminary governor budget is only giving the law required minimum of 2%. Schools, of course, are hoping it will be more based on what real inflation is. He postponed it till June 5th. It should have been out by now. All we can surmise is that he's in deliberations with the state legislature about what they would approve or wouldn't approve. So we don't know at this point, but I should be able to show you, because the budget should be done by June 2nd. And then when we meet, I should be able to go over exactly what we were given and how much we are allocating to increases in salary percentage.
You cut out again.
Cut out.
We can't hear you.
You did answer my
B
question.
plan
Thank you.
that we're trying to increase for our staff. And there's one more, I can't believe I'm forgetting it, that helps staff. Oh, we are looking at a stipend for staff and longevity pay. If you have stayed at DMS for 8 years or more, how much of a stipend can we give you to reward you? As we are seeing some issues that teachers we're hiring in are oftentimes making more or the same as teachers we currently have, because they were frozen here for so long, and those other teachers' qualifications give them more money. So we're trying to bump our staff who have been loyal to us above them and give them stipends.
Frank, how many of our current teachers meet that 8-year mark?
I want to say 11. And by the way, that's just not teachers, that's all staff. So that could be someone in maintenance, someone in the front office, an aide. We're talking about a long-term employee who has basically committed to be here with us.
Thank you, Frank. And when is benefit re-enrollment for our teachers? When is benefit?
As a matter of fact, I just agreed to the contract with United Healthcare again today. The competitor was Blue Cross Blue Shield, was a 22% increase. I chose that is a really bad idea to hit our budget by that much. That would have been just taking all of those raises away. The United Healthcare increase was 8%. And by the way, that's about normal for healthcare in all of your positions. They all go up between 6 and 9% each year. So we're going to stay with United Healthcare. I will roll that out next Friday at our teacher closing meetings so they can see the packages and choose. They usually give us 3 plans to pick from, and we'll get them to choose before they leave for the summer so we can start that enrollment process before July 1st.
And based on everyone who's eligible and on payroll, are they expressed their
Well, believe it or not, out of 40
satisfaction?
I'm sorry? Out of
Have they
40,
expressed their satisfaction? Are they pleased with these?
I'm sorry, you'll have to repeat that. I'm having trouble hearing you.
Go ahead, Frank.
Okay, out of 44 employees, we only have 31 employees that take some form of our coverage. The others are on a spouse or something different. I don't know.
Have most of them expressed satisfaction with these new health plans?
It's mixed. Depending on the plan you chose. I even found this recently with my medical situations. While the price is much better, not all the time is your preferred doctor in the choice you made. And everybody loves their doctors. And so sometimes they had to choose someone different. I found that I had to do that as well. And that's awkward, but I know the plan I chose was based on price. I didn't want to pay more. And so that's where we were This plan was a lot cheaper than the last insurance. We probably saved $80,000 from the year before to this year. And yet the big reason was this plan had us join with 8 other charter schools. And that's the first time in Arizona that was allowed to happen. Those of you who know about insurance understand that your rate premiums are lower based on how many employees are in the plan. And with a school like us with only 32 people choosing it, we now are in a plan that has 380 people when we add all those other charter schools. So our prices came way down because we were part of a conglomerate.
Thank you so much, Frank. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? Okay, we will move on. And as you're probably aware, Arizona is it 49th in education? So, please take your voice to your voted officials, put some pressure on them, and make sure they're reflecting your desires. Okay.
A unique comment about that 49th. 30 years ago, I was meeting my superintendent for my first teaching job, and he quoted, "I want to make sure you understand as you enter this career, Arizona is 49th in spending in the nation." 35 years later, I am telling that to teachers as a superintendent. It's the saddest and most despicable thing I've ever heard. That's all I'm going to say about that.
And I did send the link directly to send an email template to our legislators in a Parent Square post if anyone's interested in using that again to voice.
Thank you, Danielle. Make it easy. Okay. Now let's move on to our continuing business and open issues. I'm going to go ahead and move to approve the meeting minutes from the May 4th, 2022 regular board meeting. Nellie, thank you. As a second, is there any discussion?
I'll second.
No? Okay. All in favor? And Scott, we cannot see you. I'm sorry, Danielle, did you have something to add? Okay, all in favor? Yes, Scott, thank you. It's good to see you. Okay, doesn't look like any opposed? Abstaining? Okay, great. Motion passes.
Oh, I was just expressing my thanks to April as always.
Great. And now our continuing open issues. We have the board survey review. Danielle, I believe you were going to send out, let me see my notes, the survey questions to the community.
So I sent that to us first so we could all have our first preview. And Dan, I did add you as an editor collaborator and Scott as well. Did anyone have a chance to see that? I did get the board. We received your email when I sent that out.
You sent the survey questions? Mm-hmm. I just saw the email.
Mm-hmm, the full survey form.
I received a copy of the full survey.
I've not received anything.
I haven't either.
I received a copy of the full survey and
I also only just
reviewed
saw the letter.
Okay, so it sounds like
I didn't see a link or anything for the survey questions.
I think I saw them because she made me an editor.
You want to send it again, Dan?
I can do that.
Okay, well, it sounds like some of us got it and some of us didn't. So I guess we can table that until our next meeting, until everyone has a chance to look at those questions. Okay. Thank you, Dan, for getting those out to everyone. And would you make sure that Frank is on there as well? Thank you. I'd like him to be able to review them also. And let's see. We also were going to discuss on our next agenda item the regular survey schedule. So I think last meeting we had decided we wanted to send out regular schedules, kind of get that on a regular cadence so that the community could be, expecting a survey, and didn't know if there was any discussion or any thoughts about timing, how many surveys we should send out in any given year. So I'll open that up for discussion.
I had a question again on the email. So I just sent it out again, and there's a link there that says fill out forms. That was not included in the email, that the first one I sent.
Oh, I just got it.
That's completely different than what I got the first time.
Okay.
So when I first originally wanted to send a survey out and did send a survey out, my intention, I thought it would be great to send it out quarterly, just as a quarterly check-in to see how the community's doing. I think that we should still check in, at least 3 times throughout the school year, if not 4.
I would say once a year, or twice.
I think that also depends on if there's public comment at meetings.
I think
we could.
Oops, sorry.
I like the idea of quarterly, but maybe changing it up so that maybe it's 2 kind of heavy duty answering full questions, and then the other 2 could be more, check in on the pulse of the community, rating how you feel about things. So it doesn't take as much time, but we're still getting valuable information. I don't know. I like the idea of checking in more often, but as a parent, I'm like, I really like to dig in and take my time to do that. And I just am thinking about the amount of time it would take to do that 4 times a year. That might be a lot. I don't know. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think I'm one to more side with Danielle on this. I think less is more. I think the hope should be maximal participation, not just sort of checking in a cursory fashion, but making sure that we're getting feedback from as many people as possible in as comprehensive a manner as possible. And to my mind, like once at the end of every semester, at the end of the fall and the end of the spring, seems like it makes sense. I think parents who want to contact us can and do give us feedback, and we should keep encouraging that. But just in terms of like trying to get a comprehensive picture of what the DMS community like thinks about, how we're doing, how the administration is doing, et cetera. I think that, twice a year, like asking parents to like really meaningfully sit down and fill out something long, like more than twice a year. It seems like, at that point, if we do more than that, we're going to get, the same sort of like self-selecting, very involved parents who would fill out the survey, 10 times a year. So 2 seems like the right number to me.
I agree on doing some kind of methodical surveys. I guess I just want to push the group a little bit more as far as the actual intention of having voices heard. Is it because we need to have opportunities, like Nellie was mentioning, that we don't have open to the public? Do all of those go, and we say all of those go to Frank? And like, what happens if the meter is really, really high or really, really low? I think, or are we just doing surveys because of why? What does that do?
Well, I think for me, something that came up for me when Joan was speaking to us this evening is, what can we offer one another? I think a channel for communication is nice in the form of a survey. I know a lot of times people will talk to people, and then other people feel like I represent the community, which I'm very much not a fan of, because I don't want someone else speaking for me. So I think a survey is a nice way for people to communicate with us, and also offer suggestions, areas of what we're doing well, maybe areas for improvement. Not that just stating your opinions is going to warrant immediate action. So I think we need to be very clear about that. 'Cause sometimes I feel like people will be like, you have to do this, and then we don't, and everyone's upset. But that's not how a community works. One person doesn't just get to scream the loudest and get their way. So for me,
yeah, Kristen, I agree. I think it almost should be positioned of, these are benchmarks that maybe we use for the admin or Frank or the president for strategy, not necessarily of communication portals. I'm not a fan of this being a communication portal. I think we're bigger and better than that in this community. So I guess I just want to make that clear, at least with me, that I would hope if there was a need of communication, it wouldn't be in the format of a survey, because we can do better than that, but that it would be within the strategic plan of, the last 3 years, we showed a strength here or a weakness there, instead of communication.
And I'd like to add that the community doesn't vote us in as typical boards. So this is nice that they evaluate us as well. And we can take a look at the areas that we really do want to improve, or that we are doing well, and how the community feels about the work we're doing.
Dan, did you have something you wanted to add also?
I was just going to agree with Mariah about, I would see it more as a metric building exercise from which we can judge our performance over time, and have consistency in the questions so that you can do that type of thing. And to maximize engagement by doing it at the end of the semesters as well, when everyone's already pretty, from a parental standpoint, families are already the parents are fully engaged at the end of semesters, because everything's kind of wrapping up. And in the middle of even in the middle of semester, sometimes I won't be as on top of my parent email. But at the end of the semesters, all the events are happening, grades are coming out soon, end of year planning, just so much stuff is happening that my focus is really, really intent on what's happening with the kids in their schooling. And I wish it was that consistent throughout the semester, but I'm just being realistic.
Appreciate the honesty. I think we all understand that. Okay, so
Ben,
we talked about metrics
on the survey itself.
Pardon me?
Is my volume just too low? Can you hear me?
No.
Okay?
I think there's some over chat. Kristen started talking and you started talking at the same time.
Do you have any feedback on the questions? Were you able to review them, Dan?
I read through them one time. I don't think I was able to do them justice. I did want to comment that I thought we should review them with a lens of that measurable over time type of thing, and reduce the quantity in some areas, or see if we could combine some of the questions into be a single sentiment that covers a few different areas around the board. And then I also thought that maybe we could do some labeling around this is the board section. It was kind of you had some I love the questions. There was a bunch of really, really good stuff in there. I just thought we could package it and tighten it up a bit, but I didn't have time to say that.
Exactly what I wanted you for.
Okay, good.
So I have, this is the email that you sent is the first time I've looked at the questions. I think that we still need to decide how often we're going to send out these surveys, but if we are thinking about them more comprehensively, and I can't see the whole survey just right now, but it seems like the questions are all about the board, it might make sense to think about this as the survey that we send out at the end of the semester, wherein we're trying to get metrics on a lot of different things. Sorry, Dan, did I just miss something in what I looked at?
Yeah, there's a lot of board questions. It's front loaded with a lot of board questions. And then there's other areas farther down. You just haven't got there yet.
Okay, great. I will take a look.
So it sounds like we've got some folks that think, end semester is a great time to send a survey, and others feel like it maybe should just be, a couple times a year.
I definitely think twice a year. And
No.
based on the participation we get with this one that we send out, we'll know how we want to structure them ongoing.
Now that I can see this survey and just scroll through all of the questions, this definitely is more of a once or twice a year survey. Where the one that I had built in the fall and winter was more like 6 just quick check-in sliding scale questions 1 through 5. Where this is a good wrap up at the end of the year or in the beginning of the year or mid-year. It really is pretty detailed.
Any other thoughts? So do we want to start out with, maybe twice a year, sort of more toward the beginning? Frank, I'd love to have your thoughts too, since you're there on the street every day, keeping the pulse for us. So what do you think is most valuable?
Well, I would agree with most of the comments that the end of the year should be the big one, because we now have all of June and July, and possibly that's something we cover or go over at our board retreat, so that we can at least together look at, here's 3 things we need to approach right now in trying to improve upon. Because we have time. Trying to do that in October or March, when we're in the midst of actually having the school year, is very challenging because we're still running.
You cut out again. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Mm-mm.
Can you hear me again?
Now we can.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know why I got disconnected. I guess I'm just saying I concur that the big one should be at this time of year, end of the year, and then we set up a time in the second week of June to go over it together and see if there's anything in there that needs immediate attention. It's that the feedback was so horrible about it. Let's have time to fix it over a summer. So yeah, I like the one big one, and then maybe a check-in in November, a smaller one.
Does that feel okay to everyone as a jumping off point? Doesn't have to be set in stone forever. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, great. So now that we all have access to the survey, let's, for until our next meeting, let's look at the questions and be ready to discuss it in more detail on our June 1st meeting, and then be prepared to send that out and move forward from there. Okay. Great. Now we're on to new business. And before we kick off our COVID policy discussion, I just want to say that, per Joan's words again, I'd like us to consider, hearing one another. What can we offer one another? What is important? What is needed? I know this is a very hot topic for a lot of people. Tends to bring out the worst parts of ourselves. So everyone's very impassioned, seems to lack a bit of empathy and compassion. So I'd just like to open up the discussion with that in our hearts, that we are all here as members of the community. We've heard from the community, and I'd like to have a productive discussion around what we feel like is the best go forward strategy. So with that being said, who would like to kick it off?
I'd like to add that it also brings out the best in people too.
You know, I'm always up for this conversation.
Kick us off,
And,
Nellie.
well, you know, I wrote down some of, I do always love what Joan says. And she said, we are each other's keepers. And right now, we need to be the keepers of the youngest members of our community. And we need to give them what's needed and what is healing and what is nourishing. And I think that we need to pause our policy and allow our children to come back on campus immediately and enjoy the last few days of early childhood. 30 of these kids are moving on to first grade, and they need to be back on campus and enjoy these last few days.
I'll go next. I agree with what was just said. I think that there needs to be a more comprehensive conversation about how this community is going to respond within a public health lens during the summer. I think what we have transitioned into over the last couple of months, no mask, not really looking at deep dive mitigation in a public health lens. We have 10 days left. I think we should suspend the policy and assure within this group that we will spend the summer building out how we want a protocol to look like. I also feel like there's too much power and control with this group when it comes to what mitigation has to happen, boots on the ground every single day. And I really think that we need to rebrand the policy to give Frank and his team more control over that day-to-day response when we get back to school next fall.
I'd also like, can everyone hear me? I think I'm having issues with my mic. That we've got to give parents more notice if something like that is going to happen for any reason. If we've got to have somewhere that we can house kids and give our parents at least a 24-hour notice
Danielle,
to make other accommodations. Get the message. A spot for their kids is my recommendation.
I agree with Danielle. That's extreme. You had parents pulling out of their driveways, getting last minute notifications that they couldn't drop their children at school. That's unfair. Above all anything else, that's 100% unfair. These parents need to be able to set up care for their children. If they can't bring them to school.
I vaguely remember another survey that was going to go out to teachers regarding their thoughts on COVID policy. Was that ever conducted? I'm forgetting who formulated that.
So it wasn't on COVID policies. I was doing a check-in on what teacher expectations were for their classroom control.
Were there any questions about COVID in that survey?
Give me a moment and I'll pull it up.
Can I comment on the statement of fair? I unfortunately don't think any of this is fair. To get us to that point of fairness within what may happen this summer and fall, I don't think we'll get to fair. I don't think we'll get to one side winning. So I don't see that as a goal in mind to try to achieve fairness for either side.
I think my fair comment was just in regards to having more notice. You know, I know parents were pulling out of their driveway being told then that they were showing up at school and being told they couldn't send their kids to school. I like the 24-hour window. as in what's right, not in what's fair.
Nellie, the only comment I can make about that has to do with when we get the notice. We didn't get the notice till that morning. And so now it's 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting text messages that we have a student who tested positive and a teacher who tested positive. And we're trying to get an email between Deb, me, and Heather, who was involved because she was the EC lead. We had 45 minutes to get a message out. And so if you remember, the whole reason why the policy is there is so that 61 kids don't show up and contaminate each other, which is why it was written. Now, we can argue till we're blue in the face if that's really happening, but that's the reason it's there, is we're trying to keep kids away from each other so it doesn't spread. And so I can't control the notice if we're just finding out the morning of as well.
Does anyone else have anything to add, or does someone want to make a motion? I know, Nellie, you had a proposed motion, but I wanted to check in on everyone being able to have a voice.
I would like to reiterate that we're here to provide a school, a place of learning for the students, and families always have the option of making a choice if they're provided with one. Perhaps, again, if it falls on Frank's decision making and we just approve whatever Frank decides, if that's the best course of action. But I'm proposing there should be a holding tank or some type of spot outside or on campus to accommodate for those parents who didn't expect that. Or if they choose to get to campus or to arrive on campus and you provide them notice and they decide to leave at that point and make other arrangements, I think that would allow a parent to make the best decision for their family. Let's vote. Nellie, was it you proposed to suspend the COVID policy for the remainder of the school year?
Dan, did you have something? I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, I want to know why. Kind of, I was thinking about what Mariah was saying about us doing too much, and it should be more. I understand during like a pandemic that it became a big deal and we had to be more involved, but it seems like it's becoming more of just a standard school health thing that is handled by the executives, executive in normal times anyways, and that it should be, it would seem like we should be thinking about moving it into like a normal type of health issue, like chickenpox or lice at the school, like that Frank have his informed opinions around how that would be handled to protect the kids. That's his job, Like, I don't know. Frank, does that?
I was going to ask Frank the same thing, because Frank, when I went into the school the other day, you said, I had no choice. These are the board's policies. I have to follow what the board does. If you were able to make that decision that morning, would you have made a different decision rather than shutting down early childhood?
Based upon how Maricopa County and the state of Arizona is right now, I do not believe we should be sending home healthy kids. Now, we have to be careful how we do this, because it needs to be some type of statement that says, unless there is a change in the percentage in Maricopa County or Arizona, and then the board would revisit a permanent policy or a policy for that time period. I do still believe someone who tests positive should be out for 5 days and wear a mask. That's different than the other 29 in the class who were not positive. That's a healthy person. And by the way, that includes a staff member. If a staff member tests positive, they need to be out for the 5 days and then return in a mask for 5 days, because we know that propensity of it spreading from the person who's positive is absolutely there. That's not necessarily true of the other 29. So at the time frame we're in right now, and the way Dan stated it was, take a look on the streets. Everyone's out at restaurants. Everyone's at Suns games. We just had a fair that there were 450 people on our campus at. It doesn't seem like we're in a heightened state right now.
We lost you. Frank, we can't hear you. We can't hear you at all.
Hold on. Okay.
You're back.
We got you.
I want to reserve those board policies for the time period that requires it. I'm not sure that's this time period. Did you hear the part about if you test positive? I believe that's a different scenario.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's just like any other, like a lot of schools have, like, if you have a fever, you can't come to school. That's not new either, right?
Right, but there's no teeth in that, Dan. People send kids to school with fever all the time.
Yeah, I guess we were lucky to hit a school that was like really strict about checking kids that came to school. But,
well, when we take a temperature, we call and say they have a temperature, please come get them. But they're already here and had the possibility of spreading something.
So
Sorry.
Go ahead, Ben, please.
No, I'm just a little bit confused about where we are in the agenda. Are we speaking to Nellie's motion right now, or are we just having a general discussion?
I was speaking to Nellie's motion because I wanted to know if it was the right motion to be passing, if we should be to do something that's more like us stop dictating and more give the control back to Frank.
But she has
For
to
now.
make a motion.
I haven't even made a
Right.
motion.
Well, the proposed motion that was on the agenda. That's what I'm referring to.
Okay, so does someone want to make a motion?
I motion we suspend our COVID policies and create something new in August, or excuse me, retract. I motion we suspend our COVID policies.
I'll second.
Nellie? Okay. Any discussion? Any further discussion?
Danielle, would you be willing to broaden that statement? Give a little bit more parameters as far as whether Maricopa trends up or just that we would reestablish a policy for the fall?
So reestablish a policy in the fall? Is that to your liking?
Mr. Tanner, looks like you have a question as well, or a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle, for the motion. I think it lacks a little bit in specifics. I want to bring the kindergarten and the early childhood back for the last 7 days. So it's not that I'm against it. I want to be able to say, we're going to do this until this point, and then we're going to do this following that. Because as Frank stated, if somebody came to school and, people got sick, then we'd be having a different kind of a conversation here. So people are still getting COVID. I realize it's low. And early childhood is difficult because it's not like you have a second grade or a third grade. You can't, they're not really sequestered. They're all out there together. for the entire period. So if you could just give me something a little more specific, Danielle, I think we could do something here. Absolutely.
Ben, did you have something as well? I thought I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, I think I'm still confused because if I'm not mistaken, this was essentially what Nellie's motion is covering later in the agenda, correct?
We're kind of doing
We
both
could
at the
do
same
it
time.
the sooner the better, Ben. The sooner the
Okay.
better.
Okay. I'm probably going to abstain from this vote, just to say that up front. One, because I don't think it's good practice in general. So, well, first of all, I should say I agree with Mr. Tanner. I think the kids should be back in school. That's my personal opinion. But the two things that I don't think it's good for a board to do are, one, just to drop a policy when it's inconvenient for us, especially when amending the quarantine section seems to be all we need to do of our existing COVID policy, to just eliminate the COVID policy that we've voted on in the past, and to not have one, again, as a board of directors, seems like it's not the right thing to do, especially, again, when the quarantine section can be amended. But then the second thing, I mean, Danielle, to speak to your point, I agree that it should be up to families, right? Like, we should let them know when a student in their class has COVID. They can make their own decisions. It's ultimately up to them, and I think they should be able to choose. It's not up to the teachers, though. And I do know that the teachers are not all of one mind on this issue. So those are the two reasons I'll probably abstain. I'm not going to vote against it because, again, I think there's plenty of good reasons to get kids back in school. But just the way in which this is going about, I'm not thrilled about.
Scott or Nellie, do you want to create a motion, or Nellie, do you like yours as written?
I just want to make sure that when we allow the children back on campus, that it's still mask optional and that these kids don't have to come back in 100-degree days and wear masks. The sick children are home. If there's a sick teacher, they're home. And we're just allowing our healthy kids back on campus as everything was. So that was included in my motion. If it's just easier that I state my motion, then I will state my motion. I don't know what the chain of events need to happen since there's a motion on the floor.
Mr. Tanner, I think we're in the discussion phase, and then we'll vote when we're done with discussion.
Sure. So Danielle would need to retract her motion, and then, because there is a motion on the floor, because Nellie, you have seconded the motion, and then you could motion for whatever your motion is. So I believe that would be the process. Kirsten, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Tanner, that's correct. If you want to revise, we can retract and revise, or we can just vote as it sits and move on from there.
I will retract. Thank you very much.
I would like to make a motion that we pause our COVID policy effective immediately. This will include discontinuing contact tracing, adhering to mask optional, and allowing healthy children on campus.
Does anyone want a second?
I
Danielle?
will second.
Any discussion? Frank, it looked like you had.
Question
Go
to
ahead.
Nellie. The mask optional part, you're talking about contact tracing. What about the person who's sick, has COVID, per the CDC, can come back after 5 days, but they're supposed to wear a mask for 5 days?
I would
That's
like,
the sick person.
are they coming to school sick or are they coming
No,
to school healthy?
they're a sick child with COVID. So I did not hear in your motion that they get to come to school. They're still sick.
Right.
But per the old policy, someone who tested positive has to wear a mask 5 days after. There's no mask exemption for anyone in CDC who was positive. There are mask exemptions that we had for our campus for people who were not positive. They just happened to be in the room, the healthy child.
My motion is to pause the COVID policy for now. So that is putting that on pause and allowing the healthy children to come back on campus. Masks are optional if families want to wear them.
So I'll say again, I think that Frank's concern, if I'm not mistaken, could be addressed by amending our COVID policy rather than getting rid of it altogether. Because if
I'm only
you
pausing
strike
it. I'm not getting rid of it.
well, if we strike the quarantine section, then the part about isolation, if you have COVID, still stays, and that part still has teeth, from what I understand. So that's why I would be suggesting amending the existing COVID policy.
I'm not sure if it's relevant, but I was going to make a motion after this motion to basically give Frank healthcare policy definition and implementation powers unless we hit over 5,000 cases a day in Maricopa County again, or 10,000 cases a day in Maricopa County again, and just take it out of our hands as a decision-making process and give it to Frank, like any other medical issue in a school. So that's what that's the motion I'm basically going to be making after this motion.
Okay.
So how about any other last minute discussions, or shall we just vote? Mr. Tanner?
Ellie, could you help me understand what you mean? You say pause. I'm not sure what that means.
That's just so if there is a spike in cases again, John, say next winter, all of a sudden everyone gets really sick and there's a spike in cases, then we have a COVID policy that we can lean on. Right now, we have one child who has a slight fever, and we have every other child sitting at home. 3 weeks ago, numerous children had an insane stomach bug, and everyone was still in school. So we have sent everyone home for one child with a slight fever. This allows us to we're not suspending it, it's just on pause. It's still a part of our makeup of COVID life. And if we need to fall back on it, it's still there. And if we want to over the summer, we can bring this up again and rehash and go over our COVID policy.
Thank you for that, Nellie. I appreciate that.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Nellie, Mr. Tanner, Danielle.
Hand is raised.
Thank you, Scott. All those opposed? April, myself. Dan, and abstaining. Ben and Mariah. Okay. So help me out with the math here, April. It was 4 in favor.
4 in favor. The motion passes.
Okay.
3 opposed, 2 abstain.
Thank you.
Question?
Yep.
I want to make sure I know what we just passed. Because because I'm going to have to enforce it tomorrow. I understand that what we just passed means tomorrow students in kindergarten will return to school and not have to wear masks. And we will not quarantine if there's another case, at least for the rest of this school year, for the next 8 days. What does that mean for the student and the 2 staff members that tested positive?
When they're healthy, they can return.
In masks or no masks?
Whatever they want.
Optional.
I'll just comment. I mean, I'm abstaining because I think how we have continued to put these on the fly, not considering admin staff, it's not okay. So I would be in favor of us delegating as much authority as possible to Frank and his team. I don't think we understand or are really considering what happens after we leave the Zoom room.
Mr. Tanner?
Mariah, thank you for that. I agree with you. I think this seriously needs to be revisited after the end of the semester here. This is really just to get us through the last 7 days. That's really what I'm seeing here. And then we really need to have some serious conversation about what that looks like moving forward.
Dan?
When would it be appropriate for me to make my motion?
Anytime.
Since it seems pretty
anytime
relevant. Okay.
anytime
Okay. I make a motion to return DMS healthcare policy definition and implementation to the executive unless Maricopa COVID hospitalization numbers exceed 150 daily cases.
Please tell me you wrote that down.
I did write that down.
Okay, send it to me. I did not get a word. And you'll
Okay.
need to restate it before I can vote. Please, that was so fast. But it sounded great and well thought out.
Our current hospitalization cases are around 10 per day. So it would have to be that much. Like it would have to be we were only over 150 for very brief periods of time ever during the pandemic. So it's a pretty big number. I can restate the motion if people would like me to.
Please.
I make a motion to return DMS healthcare policy definition and implementation to the executive, Frank, unless Maricopa COVID hospitalization numbers exceed 150 daily cases. It's not perfect.
I'll go ahead and second. Any discussion?
Frank, is that you making the decisions or you and Deb?
You're
muted,
muted.
Frank.
According to that motion, it was me.
I mean, I added Frank the second time, but I just meant the executive. I should have probably left it at that.
Would you
Mr.
be
Tanner,
able
did
to
I see?
Sorry,
Go
Miss. Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead.
Dan, would you be willing to be more specific in the language as far as COVID specific? I think it, again, is a little loose to, if things do get wonky, which they won't, we've just removed ourselves from all authority. I think it's very specific to COVID.
Oh,
Mr.
Yes.
Tanner, I'm sorry. I think we have one more discussion point. Mr. Tanner, you're waiting patiently.
Yeah, no, my question was really much around Mariah's comment, and that is, what is it that we're giving, Frank the authority to do? I think it's a great idea, Dan, by the way. I thank you for that. But I just want to be clear. So in other words, if tomorrow there was some sort of number of people who tested positive, rather than saying we don't have a COVID policy because we suspended it, then Mr. Maurizio has the ability to decide what to do, and we've given him that authority. Is that is that a general summary of where we're going with this?
Yes, it just takes us out of the loop and lets Frank run the school from a health policy perspective.
Okay, Jen, did you want to retract and restate, or are you go to the stance and we can vote?
I can retract and restate. I'm trying to think, Mariah, how the only thing I was going to qualify it with, and I deleted it, but I was going to qualify it by saying until we, until we form a more comprehensive, to what you were saying earlier, basically later in the summer. But it was weird and vague, and I was having trouble like making it make sense. So, can you provide any wordsmithing to help me?
I think if you just add COVID.
Oh, I did say Maricopa COVID hospitalization numbers.
Now, the first thing that you said medical
healthcare. He said healthcare instead of COVID.
Okay, COVID policy. Okay, I can do that. Okay, so I retract my former motion and I'm making a new one. And I will say it slowly, April, sorry. I make a motion to return DMS's COVID policy definition and implementation to the executive unless Maricopa COVID hospitalization numbers exceed 150 daily cases.
This is Mariah. I'll second that motion.
Any more discussion?
Frank, I'm curious to know what you think of this motion.
I can live with the motion. I should share with you so you all know how I would react. I believe we shouldn't be sending healthy children home. So if someone calls me and says they have COVID, I think they should stay home for the 5 days. And I think they should wear a mask for 5 days because we don't know how long they're contagious for. That's how I would govern that decision. If you test positive, you're out 5 days and you wear a mask for 5 days to ensure none of the healthy people, that the risk doesn't go up for them to contract COVID.
Frank, are you going to make healthy children wear masks through the end of the school year?
No, that's not what I just said.
Okay.
The person who tests positive after they come back from their 5-day hiatus would need to wear a mask for another 5 days. That could be a kid, that could be a teacher, that could be me. That is not the healthy child rule. The healthy child does not get quarantined and does not wear a mask. Just want to let you know that's what I would do.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Yes, hold on.
Sorry, Frank. Yeah, go ahead.
I like that you ask me, guys, how I feel. I really appreciate that. But now I have to ask you, can you live with that decision from me as your executive?
Frank, would that address the classes then coming back to campus?
Right now, we have two teachers and one child who had tested positive for COVID. So they should do their 5 days and wear a mask the other 3 days that we're in. That's what I would do for those three.
So would there be an announcement that the healthy children could come back as of tomorrow?
Yes, I'm going to call Deb right after this meeting and tell her to put out an email that all EC can come back. As a matter of fact, it's 5 days for the student who had it too, but that student would have to wear a mask.
Do they have the option of a negative test to be mask optional?
No, I would not entertain that. I want to still lean on the side of not spreading this.
Thank you, Frank.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't see, can you support me doing that? Because I can't have three of you go, that was ridiculous, Frank.
If we were voting.
Giving me the power to make the decision. We're in this together, you guys.
Yep. I'm not going to micromanage, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think we need to stop micromanaging, even if we have issues with it or our side of the community, of having your leadership and having getting everyone into your office, community, teachers, students. So I'm not even going to have you say like, this is what I'm doing. Are you okay with it? I'm okay with giving you this moment until we come back and decide further.
I agree with that. I didn't want to know actually, because I wanted you to be empowered without our influence in this area, like it was before.
Yeah, I mean, my question was not inspired by wanting to know what you would do in those situations, Frank. It was inspired by the fact that you have been the object of a lot of animus about COVID in general, and I wouldn't want to put you in a position of undue pressure. But that being said, if we voted for this, I would hope that the entire board supports you 100% of the way.
I appreciate that, Ben.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Scott, I can't see you, so I'm not sure if your hand is raised or not.
My hand is not raised.
Okay. All those opposed?
My hand is raised now.
Thank you. Any abstaining? Okay. Motion passes. Okay. Moving on. The board meeting schedule for the next stretch of time. April, did you want to take that one? I know you're still probably getting caught up on your notes.
Sure. So this has been in the drive since our last meeting. I assume everyone has had a chance to look at it. I was simply going to make a motion to approve it. So before I do that, if anyone needs to make any changes, now is the time to do so.
I will second the motion.
Oh, I didn't even make a motion yet. That's great.
Sorry.
Okay. I move to approve the board meeting schedule for the 2022-2023 school year.
And now I will second.
Great.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
It is up.
Thank you, Scott. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right, and next up on our agenda is the development proposal. Ben, I believe that was your topic.
Yeah, so that is in the drive that April sent out. It's a 2.5-page document, just sort of outlining a basic plan for development for the 2022-2023 school year. Let me just pull it up real quick so I can briefly review it. So there are 5 different categories in there. Fundraising priorities, those were decided after meetings with Frank, with Michelle and Laura, and also with the LDC. And there are 3 priorities there: teacher retention, Waldorf programming, and capital projects. The proposal is to create a sustaining fund. It's a sort of staple of common staple of successful fundraising efforts, both at Waldorf schools and similarly specialized charter schools. There's a proposal also for a fundraising calendar to better coordinate our different events and asks and whatnot. There's a section about stewardship, which Sophie McCurley has kindly agreed to lead up. And then there's a section about grants, which Mariah and I have been working on. I am not going to raise this for a vote today. I think the hope is that we vote on it at the next meeting. So we've got 2 weeks to read it over and process and make any changes. In the meantime, we are going to be adding some numbers to it. So I think substantively it's going to be what it is. But we're still getting a handle on some of the numbers. There's a lot of particularities about the existing situation, and we want to compare that to what we hope to do in the next year. And so hopefully we can have some better numbers in terms of like per student fundraising to set our aims at for the next school year. The only motion I will make that pertains to this for this meeting is to invite Sophie McCurley to the next board meeting as a guest so that she can answer any questions about different segments of it. Sophie and I have been working on this together, but Sophie will know things that I don't know. So that's the one motion. But again, the hope is to actually like fully discuss this at the board meeting 2 weeks from today.
That's great. I don't think we need to make a motion to invite a guest. So we can just invite her for the next meeting and put that on the agenda. Thank you, Ben.
I have one quick question for Ben. You said you were talking about adding numbers in terms of like fundraising goals and whatnot. Will we have a calendar at that point? I mean, even just tentative?
You mean of like different events and asks and whatnot?
Yeah.
Probably not. I think that would be, I think if the board is comfortable with this plan, and again, hope to vote on it next meeting, then the process of like working out a calendar would be done like over the summer. Yeah, I think that would be the plan.
Okay, great. I loved it. I thought it was really well written. It had some good, thoughtful ideas. It was cohesive. I love that everyone was involved in, meetings and whatnot. I just love the idea that it's all going to be together and we're all working together. So thank you so much for putting this together and working with Sophie and Mariah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And thank you to Sophie and Mariah for contributing to the document as well.
Great. Well, we will look forward to having Sophie be part of our board meeting next week and viewing this further in the next 2 weeks, I should say June 1st, and then also voting on it. Okay. Next up on our new business is reinstate public comment. Danielle, I believe this was yours.
Well, twice we've scheduled that we were going to review the protocol. So has everyone done that? April has them on the website, and I think they're very well written. I wouldn't change a thing. I think they're appropriate. And that was our only item for holding back, according to our last discussion. I'd like to, we didn't officially vote it off to begin with. So I don't know if you'd like to make the proposals. I did review our meeting minutes and the agendas when it disappeared, and it wasn't a formal vote, but if you'd like to, we may, or just bring it back.
Danielle, do you want to go over what that? Do you want to go over what that entails and what Arizona Public Open Meeting Law is around public comment?
So there's the public comment guidance for the board. That's on the website. There's 10 items. Do you want me to direct you to the website, or would you like me to actually read it off? And it's already in our agenda on how we're not required to respond.
Well, it's not that we're not required, we cannot. So I just want to be really clear that we cannot respond to public comment per meeting law.
Yes, and that's always on the agenda item when we've had public comment included in the meeting.
A couple of the boards
Whether we want it to be
including Arizona Governor Board, strongly discourages from the AG's office the chat for any comments. And so I think if there's a way for us to disable that, that could protect any kind of meeting law compliance issues.
Yeah, that's in a setting and it should be disabled. Yep. And we can decide if it once a quarter or once every other month. It doesn't need to be every.
But also maybe getting into this trust, at least for me personally, I've seen also some meetings that ask for the comments to at least submit a subject and short narrative of what their talking points will be prior to the meeting being started.
Would you like to receive those?
Say that again. I
would all receive. It's okay. So we're asking them. We would be asking for the public comments to be submitted prior to our meeting.
Correct. That's
or a summary and subject.
Yes, that's a very normal practice in at least state-run boards. Is that you only go off that list of people that are submitting their request.
So that would be like their place in line, if you will.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay, yeah.
A couple things. I think all of the things we just talked about, turning off the chat, having people submit a comment, I think those need to be in our protocols. And I just looked it up and there's 2 links on this and they don't work. So this does need to be updated. It's out of date. So I don't want to volunteer anyone. I've got a senior right now and 3 million things going on, but this does need to be updated. And I think those other things should be added as well.
So there's 3. There's one that's the agenda. There's one that's the communication flow chart. And then there's the board.
The other one's just an email. Yeah, that should be fine. But then also it's, this is the section, the number 10 is signing up to speak. And it's talking about, putting a star next to your name when you sign in. This was meant for when we're in person. We're going to be online for approximately 2 more meetings. At this point, I think we just wait, update
so we can
this.
Start it in August.
Actually have someone update this document and we can approve it during one of our June meetings and have it start in July, if that's what we so choose. But this document needs to be updated. It's not ready to go, in my opinion.
Everyone in agreement? Forms revised, we vote in June, bring it back in August, and that August is an in-person, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But who's doing that? This document does not exist in the files apart from a PDF. So it needs to be translated to a Word document. It needs to be, changed into a PDF. It needs to be put on the website, all of those things. I can put it on the website once it's ready. I can't do all of those other things. I don't have the time right now.
I can do that if you need me to. April, I'll do it.
Okay. I'm writing that down. I just can't add anything else to my plate.
That's fine.
That's totally fine.
Just
understandably.
Okay, so by next meeting, Nellie, you will have the policy updated. We will take a look. We will vote on reinstating public comment in August. Did I get that correct? Just in summary?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Next up on new business is separate bank accounts for parent council, animal care, class fundraising, teacher training, and garden care.
I did leave out Hope and Health, but I think depending on what looks better, that could also be in parent council. I don't know why there aren't separate bank accounts, but that would be so clean for reports and accounting and tracking and tracing and transparency.
I guess my question is, what's the value in breaking out those accounts? What are we hoping to get?
So
what are we hoping to get with that?
Sure. When those committees are asking what their balances are, or what deposits have been made, or what donations have been made, they are already accounted for in a clearer format. I know that's one of the delays that parent council isn't able to vote because they don't have their exact figures. Usually most boards will have somebody from our main board be also a signer for checks and balances on those accounts. And it can be any one of us. It doesn't have to be any particular title. So again, for clear accounting.
And Danielle, has this been vetted by Aspire? And then I guess my second concern is that we're opening ourselves up to great levels of liability. When we look at business accounts, separating is always more risky. We are opening ourselves to issues with our audited financials, the fiduciaries of the school versus members or staff or community. Having business accounts that are open theoretically to people that are not fiduciaries of the school is very risky when it comes to audit and when it comes to just basic bookkeeping practices, as well as reconciling every single month all of those accounts.
Sure. And Desert Vista is one of my regular clients. They have 75 additional business accounts. They are a lot larger, but they don't run into that issue because of their checks and balances. So with our accounting firm, if that's something we would honor, then yes, we would want Monique's opinion, but she's used to that as well with the accounts and schools that she helps service. And Frank also, one of the first things he said was, why doesn't parent council have their own bank account when he started with our school? So I don't see the liability issue. Again, I'm usually on the other side of that desk. Every year, I'll help them change out their signers with new parents coming in. I'm not saying that I would do that for Desert Marigold, but it's such a common practice. I don't see a liability or any issues with accounting. They turn in their monthly receipts. They turn in their monthly statements. So,
and Aspire has even
Aspire didn't want to.
You have talked to Aspire?
They wish, or
Aspire's not in favor of this.
So if they decide they don't want to take that on, we could certainly do that portion, just like with Jessica Jarrett's. But that's very easy for us to just submit the accounting for that.
Ben, you had something to add?
From memory, I think Jessica has said that she's also against this as well. But I could be wrong about that. I mean, I guess I just don't know enough. Like, it seems like the idea seems great from the standpoint of just being easy, right? Like just that Michelle could have, their own account, parent council's own account and be charging things without having to go through a difficult process. Like that all makes sense to me. If
are able to set limits and authority limits, but please continue.
No, but I mean, this is one of those areas where I just trust people who are not myself more than myself. And if Jessica's saying no, then I would, right. If Jessica's saying no in this situation,
sure. I don't know if you knew that, but I am a banker for Chase in 25 years. I'm really good at what I do. So if you have questions, I can answer them.
Okay.
Can we let Michelle? Michelle,
would you like to speak? Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, you might remember, we went through many months and a few board meetings also of getting money back that was lost. And at that time, it was said that it would be revisited on if we continuously have these issues, then we would see about having a bank account for parent council. We have continuously had these issues. We get reports that we can't read. They're very confusing, and we don't know what money has come in. We don't know. People have said, oh, we gave this to parent council, we gave this to animal care, we gave, whatever it was. And we can't tell if we actually got that. And a lot of times we have to ask for even just for that report that is hard to read.
Is that the same for animal care, Michelle?
Right. Yeah. Animal care is the same thing.
So this sounds like it's more of a reporting issue than,
it's
setting up. Excuse me. Can you give me just a moment to finish? Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know that Parent Council also isn't its own legal body. I think parent PTAs are, and they are independent and have their own bank accounts. Michelle, is that something that Parent Council has considered, is becoming more of a PTA?
We have considered that, and at this point, it's if that's what we need to do in order to get a clear picture on our money, then that's what we have to do.
Is there a reason that you don't want to become PTA? I know that's popular and lots of resources there.
There are lots of resources, but they're also very much not Waldorf. Those resources a lot of times are so mainstream, we wouldn't be using a lot of their resources.
Okay.
And Kirsten, I was going to mention, it's been a history and a repeating pattern when we aren't able to locate funds or be able to trace them back to the source or which part of our school those funds belong to. And a lot of, again, I'm just using Desert Visit as an example, they're booster clubs. They use the same tax ID number. They, again, have the umbrella over all their accounts. So it's a very simple thing to do.
I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you. This is more than just those accounts. Now we're paying, our accountants to reconcile these accounts. What happens when animal care is upside down? Maybe as an example, not saying that it would be, but a lot of that is now being covered by the school. If we're going to break that out, is the school still responsible for those fees or payments? And I don't personally feel comfortable having parents have access or community members to our finances. That would need to be someone within the school that's an employee. Frank, did you have something? Sorry.
Actually, in my experience on the other side, outside of a charter in a public school, it has been considered by the auditors the worst thing we can do is allow the parent account to be commingled with our monies. That could be the biggest ding in an audit. And those of you who know about audits, it's a surprise when these things happen. We don't know what they're going to find depending on what they look at or don't look at in a certain month. And so I too am used to what Danielle is mentioning, that booster clubs or PTOs are in charge of their own separate money. It never gets commingled with our accounts. Therefore, We have zero responsibility or accountability for it. You just mentioned, Kirsten, that what happens if we go upside down in animal care? Right now, it's part of our big thing, so we would have a problem because we're not supposed to spend any money on animal care. That is state money, taxpayer money that's supposed to go to what the state says it can go to. And I guarantee there's no bucket for animal care from the state. So separating it out actually takes a huge onus away from the district. And I talked to Michelle about this. This adds a huge onus on those parents. They are now the caretakers, and they need to understand that with this, I know they're seeing it as, okay, this is a little bit of freedom. We get to access our money quickly and know how much is there. That's great. I get all that. But they are 100% responsible for what happens, and they can actually be sued separately. They are liable, not DMS. In many ways, that's a good thing for us, liability and financial wise. Danielle mentioned Desert Vista. Yeah, they have 70 separate accounts. There's a special account for the band and the cheerleaders and the chess club and student council. And those parents all run their separate entities because the districts have told them, we can't take your money and hold it for you. It's illegal. We're not supposed to do that. So I have no problem moving in this direction if Michelle and the parents understand you are taking on a big responsibility. You are liable for this, not us. That's the only 2 cents I would throw in because I love Michelle. I don't want her getting in trouble. She needs to know this does fall on her group to take care of and manage and account appropriately. That's all I would say.
Thank you.
Would we be willing to have Aspire and or Jessica come and state again, I'm not the expert either. And I think making a move without having the boots on the ground, besides Frank, and I apologize, Frank, you're definitely in there with them, I think would be a good next step.
I will tell you, I have not talked to either of them about this yet because Michelle and I just talked about it 2 days ago. They come on Thursdays to meet with me. So let me run this by them. I have no idea how they feel at all.
You know, we might want to, I don't know how this all works from a legal perspective either. You know, if they need to set up their own bank accounts, and is it still okay for the money to run through DMS? Like, are we still collecting it, but putting it in their account? I'm not sure how all that works. So I think I might reach out just to make sure that if this is the direction we want to move, that we do it the correct way. I don't know, Frank, do you have any experience there? Or?
Yes, I would tell you that anything that goes to parent in their accounts, they collect. It can't come to the school at all. We can't touch it. An example right now, when Michelle has a fundraiser, there's a bake sale. They have to walk that little baggie in with the $311. I have to lock it up until I can get it in Jessica's hands. So now I'm responsible for it for 3 days until Jessica can get there. Michelle is not allowed to take that home in her car because if it gets broken into or stolen, she's responsible. So we want to do away with that liability for the school. It goes to Michelle. She's got to go right to the bank and deposit it into their accounts. The other thing that is a rule that parents need to understand that they may not, when they fundraise, it has to be from adults. They cannot fundraise to kids directly. Parents are not allowed to take money from kids. They can only take it from adults. So the dollar cupcake they're selling, if they do a bake sale, they can't sell it to a kid. They can sell it to adult. They can't sell it to a kid. And there's specific rules for that for parent groups.
Okay.
Michelle, did you still have something to add?
I just wanted to say that Animal Care has been on a personal card for 2 years, over 2 years now. They're like, we have not had access to the school card for that long. So Animal Care definitely needs off of there also.
Any other thoughts? Sounds like we have a couple.
Excuse me, Kristen. Frank, when the classes do their fundraising, is that different, or are they also entitled to have their own account?
Yes, they are, and they do. Like when the senior class does a bake sale, that's kids selling to kids. And by the way, kids can sell to adults or kids, but adults can only sell to adults. So when Emma comes to me with the little blue bag with $147 from cupcake sales, she hands it to me. I put a note on it that this goes to senior class. I get it to Jessica, and she deposits it directly in the senior class account, which they then were fundraising for the senior trip, which they're on now. And so that's how that works. Yes, classes and kids can run fundraisers as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so as a follow-up, we are going to reach out to Aspire and Jessica to see what their thoughts about this are. Michelle, it sounds like you are not willing to have a discussion about reporting, but you want to go ahead and move forward with your own accounts. Did I hear that correctly? For Parent Council?
Correct.
Okay, so I will reach out to our legal team just to make sure we do that all correctly as far as what we can and can't do, so we're clear and we're not relying on memory or thoughts around that, and bring that to the June 1st meeting. Now, I will also just want to bring up, so Parent Council, Animal Care, Teacher Training, and Garden Care, does that falls under school? That doesn't fall under Parent Council, is that correct?
Those were just ideas for whoever needed to have those reports or whoever was facilitating those items.
I thought what you just named were actual things that Parent Council spend money on. And so when they collect money, they funnel it to that source. If it's something they collect for animal care, they want it separate in an animal care. If it's something they collect for the teacher training, because they pay for a large bulk of the teacher training, as you know. Michelle, am I saying that correctly?
I think so. I mean, the teacher training would just go into the general Parent Council account, in my opinion, because like you said, that they're the same. I would just think that Parent Council and Animal Care should be two separate accounts. And then whatever else, I don't have an opinion on those.
Okay, so for the ones that are staying within, the DMS, kind of general account, let's get Monique and Jessica's thoughts on how best to break those out, which would be class fundraising, teacher training, and garden care as it pertains to DMS efforts. And then we'll also look to get more clarification around Parent Council and Animal Care being its own account that's run by Parent Council, and that'll break away from the school bank accounts. I saying that correctly? I just want to be real clear.
And Christian, I think you can omit class fundraising. Sounds like Frank says they already have an individual record keeping for that.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Let's see.
Can I
Next.
interrupt you for 1 minute? We
Yes.
are really close to the end of our agenda. I would like to have a 5-minute break, run to the bathroom, say goodnight to my child who's going to disappear for 2 days. Is everyone okay for a 5-minute break? We can all run to the bathroom. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, April. Okay. We will reconvene at 9:05. Looks like everyone's coming back. Okay. Let's see. Scott, are you back?
He is not, and it left at
I think we lost him.
9:03.
Oh, okay. We lost him.
9:03,
great.
April.
Okay. I'm just going to say he left at the end of the break or at the break.
Thanks. Okay, so we are back. We will reconvene. Let's see, where are we? Under new business, we've got a couple more agenda items. Emails. Danielle, I believe this was yours as well.
And this was just a thank you, Kristen, for you responding to a lot of the emails that have been coming in. And thank you for doing that. And for the I don't know if there's a time delay or if that's a server issue, but I know this morning when Nellie and I spoke, there was one that came in later than we anticipated it. So I didn't know if there's a filter, or if that's just a server thing, or what the delay could be on that.
And when you say delay, you were expecting the autoresponder and it took longer than anticipated?
No, there was an email that was sent. I don't have the exact time written, but it was closer to 8, and it didn't come into the inbox until about 11. So I don't know if that's just a server thing, or if that's something being filtered, or if that's some unknown issue.
I really don't know. Do you guys want to spearhead looking into that?
Where's Dan? That's what I was just thinking. Scott showed up and Dan disappeared. What's happening? I looked away for 1 minute. We've got to swap.
But thank you, Kristen. Appreciate you addressing those.
And I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Did you or Nellie want to spearhead looking into what that delay might be?
Sure. I thought that was more of Dan's area of expertise, but yes. Who would, any of you have a point of reference or contact? Again, is that a server or, well, yes, I will look into it.
Great. Okay. Next item is senior gifts.
Frank, is that anything you've used to doing in the past, or that we've done for our seniors, or typical for some of the schools you've experienced?
Yes, I'm used to a senior class raising money to leave something in their honor that would benefit the whole, in this case, high school. But certainly because it's a K-12 school, they could choose to do something for the whole school. I have not heard that our seniors are doing anything like that, but obviously, yeah, those are positive situations that, kids raise money all year long, and sometimes they have some left over, and sometimes they raise money for a specific gift and a senior trip and prom. There could be many pots of money going on at one time. It's always a positive thing, especially when it's left by kids, because their pulse of the school is a different pulse than us old folks looking at it. It just is. So I would welcome that if they want to do that, if that's something that the group would want to start next year. Crystal has not indicated to me that they have an idea for a gift for this year. Maybe they do, and they just don't know what to do, but I have not heard anything.
And what's given to them at graduation? Do they receive diplomas or certificates?
Yes, they receive diplomas.
And is that a nice folder that we present for them, or what do we have in store?
It comes in a cover, a DMS cover, and there was enough money left over that I believe Crystal made them a separate senior memory book.
Oh, very nice.
And there's no cost for that one. The yearbook is a cost, but that's with everyone in it. This one is just about seniors, and Crystal was able to utilize, and the kids voted on it, go ahead and do it, but they won't see it till that night, I believe. So they're, whether they knew it or not, they gave themselves a little gift because they fundraised for it and didn't know it would go to that. It was kind of above and beyond what they needed for the senior trip. So
I just wanted to add, I'm not sure that everyone on the board is aware of this, but Crystal Lee was with that class for many, many years as the teacher's aide. So she's been with them forever. So these are like her kids. So I can imagine that was a really fun project for her and meaningful to the students because they've known her for ages.
And the senior play was awesome. So that was definitely a nice treat. They did Clue on Body Manor. Love how they incorporated the set throughout the airway walkway there. It was very, very classy. They all did an amazing job. They were very funny. They all looked like they were having a great time. I didn't hear back on the dinner, but want to say a special thank you to all the teachers and staff and everyone who supported that event. Because again, it was said today how it's a thankless job, and to all our faculty, staff, and payroll, really go over and beyond, and everything you do, we don't see. We just appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. And last agenda item is the Hobbit House dedication.
So the mud playhouse that's in the garden, Evan Copenhagen, one of the high school teachers, is going to be on campus this year. And so we're looking into a little bit of a restoration and then dedicating it to the community. So with his support, parent council and a lot of the hands are still that created it are still, some of those students are still enrolled at the school. So that'll be nice. So more details to come.
Great. And I think the last time we spoke about the Hobbit House, Frank, was there a decision made to keep it? Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
No decision was made, but there is conversation, and I did not know that the high school was involved in any restoration. That didn't get brought to my attention until Danielle just did, because the elementary teachers are feeling like there's some liability in that hut right now with glass bottles that can cut kids, with black widows, with scorpions. Kids have been caught hiding in there, boys and girls together, and that makes teachers nervous whenever that happens, because you can't see in because it's so small. And so there was some talk of, we really don't use it as a school. It's just there to be seen. Should we be taking down something that could be a liability to us? The other side of that coin is several parents, including parent council, came to me and said, no, we'll fix it. We'll change it. We'll clean it. We love that. That's something we did years ago when we first started the garden. It really is a good thing at DMS. And so I told both groups I hadn't made a decision yet. This was not something I was going to take lightly and just make a snap decision. I needed to sleep on it. And that was about a month ago, Michelle. Is that correct? Maybe a little longer. So I had not made a decision. But there is equal opinions on both sides of what its worth and value is, or the opposite of, oh my gosh, someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get bit by a spider, someone's hiding and doing something that we can't see. So I've seen both sides.
Can we take a true survey of teachers? Because I have talked to several teachers who are absolutely opposed to taking it down. So I know of a couple who want it removed, but I'm not sure
survey of the teachers. That's not a problem. Even the survey doesn't reveal if it really is a liability or not, though. That's the question. Is it a liability? Can a kid get hurt?
And Frank, it was an early discussion, so I wanted to know if that was, again, because you haven't made a decision. So we were just in early discussion.
And Danielle, so you know, I'm not mad about something like that. These are people trying to think positive and creative. And as you know, Mr. Kopakin is so positive, and he always wants to be part of the solution. He clearly hasn't crawled in there and sat in there, but that things like that don't upset me. It's okay. We'll get the right resolve about it. I'll talk to the right people, but no decision has been made. So.
Great. So it sounds like we need to make sure we're including Frank before we move on or move forward with any kind of structural restoration.
Yeah, we haven't moved forward whatsoever, but yes, it was mainly just the discussion of some of the things that could be done. But yes, we haven't begun anything.
I understand.
Okay, great. So we'll make sure and include Frank on any kind of structural restorations, make sure he's on board as well before we make any kind of decisions or dedications. So we're not kind of we're all swimming in the same direction. Okay, great. Moving on to our announcements. We have the last day of school. Frank, you already mentioned the 26th. Our next board meeting will be June 1st. Lots of other things going on. Thank you. Please check the calendar. I'm sure lots of continued communications through Parent Square will be coming out. And with that, I forgot to ask someone yet again to read the closing verse. So, Mariah, would you be willing to read the closing verse for us? Sorry to pick on you here last moment.
No worries. The most important
Mr. Tanner.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, 1 second. Mr. Tanner has a question.
Sure.
I'm sorry, did we motion to close the meeting?
No, thank you for keeping me on point. I appreciate that. Let's do that first. So I will go ahead and move that we close or adjourn the May 18th, 2022 meeting.
It's Mariah, I'll second that motion.
Great. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
My hand is raised.
Thank you, Scott. Any opposed? Abstaining? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Tanner. And Mariah, sorry, please.
No worries.
Would you lead us in a closing verse?
The most important task for humankind today and in the future is that we should learn to live together and understand one another. If this human fellowship is not achieved, all talk of development is empty. Rudolf Steiner.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all that joined the board meeting this evening. It was a long meeting. Appreciate you sitting through it, and have a good rest of your evening, and we'll see you soon.